So long a letter by Mariama Bâ Chapter. Continued Chapter 13. My own crisis came 3 years after your own. But unlike in your own case, the source was not my family-in-law. The problem was rooted in Modu himself, the husband. My daughter Darba, who was preparing for her baccalaureate, often brought some of her classmates home with her. Most of the time it was the same young girl, a bit shy, frail, made noticeably uncomfortable by our style of life. But she was really beautiful in this her adolescent period. In her faded but clean clothes, her beauty shone pure. Her shapely contours could not but be noticed. Sometimes noticed that Modu was interested in the pair. Neither was El worried when I heard him suggest that he should take Binatu home in the car, because it was getting late. He would say. Binatu was going through a metamorphosis, however. She was now wearing very expensive off-the-peg dresses. Smilingly, she would explain to my daughter, "Oh, I have a sugar daddy who pays for them." Then one day, on her return from school, Darby confided to me that Binatu had a serious problem. The sugar daddy of the boutique dresses wants to marry Binatu. Just imagine. Her parents want to withdraw her from school, with only a few months to go before the back, to marry her off to the sugar daddy. Advise her to refuse, said. And if the man in question offers her a villa, Mecca for her parents, a car, a monthly allowance, jewels, none of that is worth the capital of youth. I agree with you, Mum. I'll tell Binatu not to give in, but her mother is a woman who wants so much to escape from mediocrity, and who regrets so much her past beauty, faded in the smoke from the wood fires, that she looks enviously at everything I wear. She complains all day long. What is important is Binatu herself. She must not give in." And then, a few days afterwards, Darba renewed the conversation, with its surprising conclusion. "Mum, Binatu is heartbroken. She is going to marry her sugar daddy. Her mother cried so much. She begged her daughter to give her life a happy end, in a proper house, as the man has promised them. So she accepted." "When is the wedding?" "This coming Sunday, but there'll be no reception. Binatu cannot bear the mockery of her friends." And in the evening of this same Sunday on which Binatu was being married off, I saw come into my house, all dressed up and solemn, Tamsa, Modu's brother, with Mordobi and his local imam. Where had they come from, looking so awkward in their starched balbus? Doubtless, they had come looking for Modu, to carry out an important task that one of them had been charged with. I told them that Modu had been out since morning. They entered laughing, deliberately sniffing the fragrant odor of incense that was floating on the air. Sat in front of them, laughing with them. The imam attacked. There is nothing one can do when Allah the Almighty puts two people side by side. "True, true," said the other two in support. A pause. He took a breath and continued. "There is nothing new in this world." "True, true," Tamsa and Mordo chimed in again. "Some things we may find to be sad are much less so than others." I followed the movement of the haughty lips that let fall these axioms, which can precede the announcement of either a happy event or an unhappy one. What was he leading up to with these preliminaries that rather announced a storm? So their visit was obviously planned. Does one announce bad news dressed up like that in one's Sunday best? Or did they want to inspire confidence with their impeccable dress? I thought of the absent one. I asked with the cry of a hunted beast, "Modu?" And the imam, who had finally got hold of a leading thread, held tightly onto it. He went on quickly, as if the words were glowing embers in its mouth. Yes, Modu fall, but, happily, he is alive for you, for all of us, thanks be to God. All he has done is to marry a second wife today. We have just come from the mosque in Grand Darkar, where the marriage took place. The thorns thus removed from the way, Tamsa ventured. Modu sends his thanks. He says it is fate that decides men and things. God intended him to have a second wife. There is nothing he can do about it. He praises you for the 1/4 of marriage in which you gave him all the happiness a wife owes her husband. His family, especially myself, his elder brother, thank you. You have always held us in respect. You know that we are Modu's blood. Afterwards there were the same old words, which were intended to relieve the situation. You are the only one in your house, no matter how big it is, no matter how dear life is. You are the first wife, a mother for Modu, a friend for Modu. Tamsa's Adam's apple danced about in his throat. He shook his left leg, crossed over his folded right leg. His shoes, white Turkish slippers, were covered with a thin layer of red dust, the color of the earth in which they had walked. The same dust covered Mordo's and the Imam's shoes. Mordo said nothing. He was reliving his own experience. He was thinking of your letter, your reaction, and you and I were so alike. He was being wary. He kept his head lowered, in the attitude of those who accept defeat before the battle. I acquiesced under the drops of poison that were burning me. 1/4 of marriage, a wife unparalleled. I counted backwards to determine where the break in the thread had occurred from which everything had unwound. My mother's words came back to me. Too perfect. I completed at last my mother's thought with the end of the dictum. Apostrophe to be honest. I thought of the first 2 incisors with a wide gap between them, the sign of the primacy of love in the individual. I thought of his absence, all day long. He had simply said, "Don't expect me for lunch." I thought of other absences, quite frequent these days, crudely clarified today yet well hidden yesterday under the guise of trade union meetings. He was also on a strict diet, to break the stomach's egg, he would say laughingly, this egg that announced old age. Every night when he went out he would unfold and try on several of his suits, before settling on one. The others, impatiently rejected, would slip to the floor. I would have to fold them again and put them back in their places, and this extra work, I discovered, I was doing only to help him in his effort to be elegant in his seduction of another woman. I forced myself to check my inner agitation. Above all, I must not give my visitors the pleasure of relating my distress. Smile, take the matter lightly, just as they announced it. Thank them for the humane way in which they have accomplished their mission. Send thanks to Modu, a good father and a good husband, a husband become a friend. Thank my family-in-law, the Imam, Mordo. Smile. Give them something to drink. See them out, under the swirls of incense, that they were sniffing once again. Shake their hands. How pleased they were, all except Mordo, who correctly judged the import of the event.